No matter who wins the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, America has lost. The jury has final say. But I'm less interested in whether Amber Heard is a liar, and more interested in why so many people are invested in the idea that she might be. After weeks of contested, contentious testimony, expert witnesses and cross-examination, closing arguments in the defamation lawsuit over Amber Heard's Washington Post op-ed concluded on Friday. In her final statement, Heard became emotional as she described being harassed, humiliated, threatened every single day of the proceedings, which were instigated by her ex-husband, Johnny. The jury might disagree, but the Internet's court of opinion has seemingly already made up its mind. She is lying. The jury is still deliberating, but the Internet's court of opinion has already made up its mind. She is lying. While the TikTok hashtag #IStandWithAmber Heard has amassed more than 8 million views, hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp is at 15 billion views, and as NBC News reporter Kat Tenbarge noted, the internet simply wasn't built for a trial like this. Some of the social media content slamming Heard has even, reportedly, been paid for by conservative websites. A psychiatrist who testified on behalf of Heard is facing a campaign of negative online reviews meant to sabotage her career. The trial is revealing a lot about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but it's revealing a lot more about us. Why is our supposedly progressive culture suddenly obsessed with old-school, misogynistic tropes about lying harlots? How did we go from believing women to cheering their humiliation? Armchair pundits and comedians have called the trial and its ensuing media circus fun. The experience has been anything but for survivors. This kind of voyeuristic and sensationalistic celebrity treatment further normalizes abuse and undermines victims of intimate partner violence, especially those who happen to be women. Wagatwe Wanjuki, an anti-violence advocate who helps communities prevent and respond to sexual abuse, believes that the trial's reception is a symptom of a culture that still needs to be educated on the complicated realities of intimate partner violence. We need to show and encourage a better way to talk about abuse, abusers and victims, she said. We do not teach people what domestic violence is, so most are ill-equipped to talk about abuse with the proper care and education needed to avoid upholding a culture of abuse. Meanwhile, much of the online commentary about the Depp Heard trial contrasts sharply with the actual evidence presented in the courtroom. Heard described more than a dozen experiences of violence, which Depp called insane and all false. While Depp described himself as a Southern gentleman who had respect for women, texts Depp sent to Heard called her a worthless hooker. In others, he joked about wanting to smack the ugly C around. He also joked about burning and raping her dead body in a text sent to his friend and fellow actor Paul Bettany. The trial also revealed that Depp spent a lot of time with Marilyn Manson, a man who has been accused of rape by several women, and who is also suing one of them for defamation. Like Depp, Manson denies the allegations. Heard's every gesture has been analyzed and scrutinized. Depp's side behavior? Not so much. The actor smiled, grinned and snacked on candy throughout the trial. Depp is either an abuser, or a victim of abuse. But his body language throughout this excruciating ordeal has remained casual, even cheerful. It would be hard to imagine Heard getting away with similar, even seeming, nonchalance. Ultimately the jury will decide whom they believe is telling the truth. But I'm less interested in whether Heard is a liar and more interested in why so many people are gleefully invested in the idea that she might be. Millions of people seem suddenly interested in domestic violence, but only because there's a chance a scorned and vengeful woman might be lying about it. Being wrongly accused of rape is astonishingly rare. In fact, it rarely ever happens. The majority of sexual assault is not reported most of the time. But the ongoing mythology around false accusations prevents a lot of survivors from getting justice. Innocent men rarely get accused of abuse, but the Depp case could give the public more reasons to believe the opposite. The public humiliation of Heard will only make victims more afraid to come forward. To an outsider, Heard and Depp's relationship seems tumultuous, volatile and at times even violent. But calling their dynamic mutual abuse, as it was during the trial, perpetuates the same kind of stereotypes that keep abusers in control. It's dangerous because it doesn't exist, Wanjuki said about the term. At the core of an abusive relationship is a power imbalance that is created and sustained by a pattern of domination and control. Spreading this term is a gift to abusers, because it distorts the true nature of the relationship by minimizing what they've done. While the throngs of Depp fans may believe that they've picked the right side in this trial, they are also enabling damaging stereotypes about survivors. The public humiliation of Heard will only make victims more afraid to come forward. No matter who wins this lawsuit, it feels as if we have all already lost. How the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial set us back. This week, the Adult Survivors Act was signed into law in New York, opening a year-long window in which survivors sexually abused or assaulted when they were 18 or older can file lawsuits against their abusers and the institutions that enabled the abuse. The law is long overdue, as survivors often need years or decades to come to terms with their abuse. At the same time, one of the most highly publicized trials ever involving sexual and other forms of abuse between adults continued for its sixth week. The Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial has amassed more online attention than some of the country's most impactful news stories, including the Ukraine war and the leaked Supreme Court draft decision regarding Roe v. Wade. The media has covered it extensively and scrutinized every detail. Businesses have weighed in, and it is the first major trial to go viral in the TikTok era. Regardless of who is right and who is wrong, who is telling the truth and who isn't, and who ultimately wins or loses this case, as an advocate for survivors of sexual abuse and assault, the general public's reaction to the trial has been shocking, and I have seen firsthand how the vicious online response in particular has been extremely detrimental to sexual abuse survivors, particularly the adult survivors this new law is meant to help. Many adult survivors are already afraid to come forward with their stories out of fear of retaliation by their abusers and the involved institutions or organizations. Now, with social media being the force that it is, the fear of online harassment and beratement is added to that list. These survivors are seeing the horrific treatment Heard has received, including being made into memes and mocked endlessly on social media, receiving death threats, and potentially having her career. Other survivors, who lack the resources that Heard has at her disposal, are understandably afraid that something similar will happen to them. Survivors have reached out to me scared that because they are seeking justice against their abusers, they may be the next target of ridicule, contempt, and hateful attacks. This trial and the commentary surrounding it has only confirmed their worst fears about telling their stories to the world. Further, the power dynamics that are on display in this trial are often mirrored in cases of sexual assault and abuse. It's very common that the power imbalance that allows the abuse to happen in the first place leads to survivors being up against a person or organization that has the resources and power to try to silence them. In this case, an entire online fan base has been deployed. This hateful and toxic discourse, which is a perfect example of #MeToo backlash, sends an awful message to survivors who are considering coming forward and trying to seek justice against powerful, influential abusers. This trial is also an example of a troubling trend in which those accused of abuse retaliate by filing defamation lawsuits against those coming forward. Outside of this trial, we have already seen it in other high-profile cases, such as those involving Marilyn Manson and Jeffrey Epstein. Survivors should have every option available to them, including coming forward anonymously or putting their name on a lawsuit, without fear of the repercussions. Employing tactics like defamation lawsuits is often nothing more than a shameful attempt at discouraging survivors from using their voices to demand change. As is too often the case, these developments have felt like one step forward and two steps back. New York's Adult Survivors Act has offered hope and a path to justice for many survivors who at the same time are being bombarded with toxic, hurtful jokes and hateful reactions to people who have experienced abuse. It appears that because Amber Heard and Johnny Depp are celebrities, people think it's acceptable to make light of what was clearly an abusive relationship. But as someone who has seen the ways in which sexual assault, domestic abuse and other types of violence can permanently and irreparably impact survivors, these are not subjects to be made light of or turned in. The fallout of this trial will extend beyond these two celebrities to shape an entire generation's understanding of sexual abuse and domestic violence.